Today we're going to be EQing a bass drum using the Digidesign EQ3 7-band EQ that comes with Pro Tools LE. I want to note that this same procedure would work with any plugin of EQ as well as any hardware EQ. This is a common mix technique where we sweep around the frequencies looking for stuff that we do like and boosting it, or for stuff that we don't like in a sound and removing it or attenuating it. When doing this type of practice, it's also important to keep in mind that you want to check in context how the instrument is sounding within the mix. You don't want to just do this on a solo instrument and make something sound really good to later find out that it doesn't sound great in the mix, because a big important part of mixing is how everything comes together to create the whole song. Now, we're going to just be doing this with the solo bass drum to clean up the sound, because I think that's very important that our bass drum sample sounds very good. But just keep in mind that if you were doing this with a regular mix, if you're doing this in the context of a song, you'd want to just check back and make sure that it sounds good with the whole song, especially the bass line when doing the bass drum. A lot of times we find in bass drums, either electronic or acoustic, sampled or real, that 400 hertz is a good starting point for sweeping, to find some tonal frequencies or boxy sounds that don't really help either the low end of the bass drum, the punchiness, or the beater sound at the top end. A lot of mids and low mids can be removed in order to make way for other things in the mix and other parts of the bass drum. So I'm going to dial in 400 hertz to my low mid frequency. I'm also going to give myself a nice tight bandwidth so it's precise, and then we're going to boost the gain. Okay? I'm going to turn this band off, and let's hear our bass drum sample to see what it sounds like without any EQ. Okay, and now let's engage the low mid frequency band and hear what it sounds like boosted at 400 hertz. Okay, we're already hearing that chirp tone there, and we know that that's not helping our bass drum sound, so we can get rid of it. Before we do that, we're going to sweep around a little bit to see what the surrounding frequencies sound like, and maybe find what we consider to be the most annoying or most piercing, or just the sound, the most improperly tuned, just the sound that we don't like. Okay, maybe I'll open up the bandwidth just a little bit. All right, let's sweep down to 300 and see what we find along the way. All right, now when we get to this point, it's not as bad, but throughout the entire 300s, I would say that we're hearing not there so much. We're hearing a lot of frequencies we don't need, like right there. All right, let's do a reduction there, a big one. Bring that all the way down, and maybe widen up our bandwidth, and just remove that entire part of the spectrum. Let's hear it with and without this reduction. Now, while that is subtle, you will notice that there is a difference in the low-end characteristics of this bass drum, that by removing some mids, we've already given the appearance of a bassier kick drum. Okay, let's get back up to 400 and sweep up this time and maybe see if there's something else in the mids that we want to remove. That's a pretty apparent tone there. That's pretty harsh too. All right, I want to get rid of this 546 and all the surrounding frequencies too. Now we want to make sure we didn't go too far. Let's hear it with and without these two bands. It's really a different instrument now. Now, if you wanted something punchier, you may want to bring some of this back, but if you wanted something deeper, you'd probably leave it just where it is. All right. From there, I'm going to go down to the low end, now that we've gotten some of the stuff we don't want out of the way. I'm going to bring in some low frequencies. When doing this, you don't want to do an 18 decibel boost like we were doing in the other bands, because that's a little extreme. It's definitely going to make it clip or distort. So we're going to start down in the 40s, and I don't know if your monitors go this low. If they don't, you'll have to use your imagination or use this when you're in a place with the real monitors. All right, here we go. I'm going to give myself about a 5 dB boost. Of course, this is going to sound good when you add bass to a bass drum. But let's just find what we think is the nicest boost for us. And I like the sound that comes with the beater, that comes with the first sound, not the decaying frequencies that come later, because then you have the appearance of two bass drums, and that's not good. See, I don't like the tonality of this one. I'm going to skip past this. Same thing here. We're hearing that second beat. Ba-dum, ba-dum. I don't like that. And now we're distorting because this is a lot of that frequency there. All right. I liked it lower. I liked it down, way down low. If you're hearing this on computer monitors, I apologize. But just apply this at home when you have your real monitors in front of you. All right, let's hear it with and without everything. Sounding much better. All right, the next thing we're going to do is maybe look for something on the top end, which is the sound of the beater, the sound of the beater hitting the skin of the drum. And I know this is an electronic sound. That's more of a metaphor or analogy for that. But what we want to accomplish is having some of that thwack at the beginning, the sound of the beater hitting the skin, the initial transient. This will enable us to hear this bass drum on either computer speakers, television speakers, or anything else that doesn't have a lot of low end. You still want there to be that bass drum event, because the bass drum many times is the pulse of the song. Okay, so I think that 5K or 5,000 hertz is definitely a good starting point when doing this kind of EQing. All right, let's listen to what 5,000 sounds like. Okay, it's a nice beater sound. It's coming out. I'm going to tighten this up, get a little more precise. And same thing, we're going to scroll around and look for something that we like. I think this whole range is sounding pretty good. I don't want to go that far. And I'll do something like that. Okay, sounding great. Now, I might want to also put in a low pass filter and really just remove the very top end stuff. This is not required, but something worth giving a listen to. All right, let's hear the difference between our two bass drums. Okay, I think I went a little too far with this. Just going to give it just a little taste of that. And here we are, one more time. Versus. Thank you for checking this tutorial out. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you to Indaba Music. And stay tuned for many more. Peace.